content. Listen. Cool. Week 4? Week 4 of the LCS, I think. Is that where we're at? Let me... That's the wrong button. Week 4. It's literally all these files named Week 4. Whatever. I'm paying attention. The second round robin coming through, we're starting to figure out more exactly where these teams are starting to shake out, starting to get a better idea of who is capable of beating who, and who belongs at the top to stay at the top. And all things considered, between last week and this week, not a lot has changed. To start things out, we're going to go with Cloud9 still at the top. They are still decisively the best team in North America, especially after beating down 100 Thieves in the second fastest game of the spring split. Sure, they get a virtual freebie against Golden Guardians, but their other two games were at least a fair chance for both of the competitors to have a fighting chance to win that game. They at least looked like they were going to have a little bit of fun and Evil Geniuses, where they had the kill the carry comp with an insane wombo combo, capped off by Perks' Yasuo. This team objectively looks to hold the number 1 slot through the end of the year. Maintaining again in second place, TSM, their only slip up being against FlyQuest. This team played exceptionally well, otherwise against tough competition. They had a great game against Team Liquid, and the game against CLG was probably closer than it really needed to be. But Spica, getting 2 clutch Baron steals against Team Liquid, was able to cap off that victory to keep this team up here in the number 2 slot. Had it gone the other way around, TL would probably be sitting here, but for the time being, TSM is holding on to this one, and I think the game against CLG says more about CLG than it does TSM. Either way, this team is still the closest one to Cloud9. As mentioned, a game against TSM escaped their grasp because of the hands of Spica. Team Liquid falling into the 3rd place, and by falling, I mean they're still here in the 3rd place, haven't moved at all, but they should have been able to close it out against TSM if it weren't for those couple of slip-ups in that objective control. Small micro mistakes led to that defeat, and one that Team Liquid won't soon forget, by the words of Santorin. Their team record is better than I think what this team actually is capable of doing, and realistically this team should be able to match up against anybody in the LCS. After dropping them down a whole lot to number 5 last week, they at least redeemed themselves to a number 4 position this week, with 100 Thieves coming in at the 4th spot, almost exclusively because of what Dignitas did this last weekend. Even though they were steamrolled by Cloud9 in that second fastest game of the split, their performance against Dignitas also put the emphasis that they are at least a little bit better than Dig. Plus, this team beat CLG. Dignitas did not. I'd probably give all the credit in the win over Dignitas to the Renekton Olaf pick, because it just has an insane win rate, and especially when you pair them together. But beyond that, this team is trending upward, but not there yet. And now going down into that number 5 position, Dignitas, after not a great week, almost one that would slide this team down to the number 6 spot, is going to come in here at number 5. But I'm not yet convinced that they don't have the consistency to stay in the top 5. They at least walk away with the win over Immortals, but a close loss to 100 Thieves and CLG both for that 1-2 weekend guarantees a drop from that 4 to 5 spot, and they're teetering on that number 6. And like I said with TSM, I think the game against CLG says more about CLG's capabilities than it does against Dignitas. Creeping closer to the top 5 still is going to be Evil Geniuses, even with a relatively mediocre difficulty of schedule this weekend to give them the 2-1. It's a team that's still kind of shaky and unreliable to always perform when necessary. Cloud9 bust out that sick wombo combo team with the Malphite Yasuo that would ultimately decimate this squad in Evil Geniuses. But in the other 2 games, Impact would at least get Renekton as well as Svenskeren picking up the Olaf picks. So either way, it's just good in general for business. And if they can buckle down on those mistakes, if Jizuki can settle down a little bit, then I think this team is going to be able to breach back into the top 5. Coming up to the number 7 spot, FlyQuest is coming in here, even with the worst record between this spot and the next one. The saving grace of this team, even though their record is showing what it is that there are glimpses of excellence that do pop up every once in a while between Palafox and Jose Diodo. Palafox almost single-handedly was the reason that they were able to beat TSM, at least in the setup. Sure, Johnson was able to come in for the cleanup, but Palafox was the one that was the initiator to give them those advantages and would at least punish those positions. They were almost in a daze, at least in their other game against Team Liquid, and really had no say as to what was happening, as Team Liquid was in complete control in the driver's seat for that entire time. FlyQuest otherwise was just reactive, and the game against Evil Geniuses was, frankly, for both teams, just a hot mess. In the number 8 spot, even with a better record than FlyQuest, this team seems to be more inconsistent than them. Their bot lane's been occasionally okay. They've had shown signs of glory, but have not been able to at least step up and capitalize on that and take over the game. They always get punished for something as a team that would then knock them back down a peg or two. They at least get the win over Golden Guardians with Revenge's Aatrox getting ahead and putting the backpack on through the early game, and then letting the team at least catch up and scale up through the rest of this one. They did have close fights with Team Liquid, but they just could never make any actual moves for the net positive, as it was just at least a trade, if not ending in the negative for them, and eventually would give that win away to TL. So that's why they're falling to number 8. Coming in at number 9, and I love to see them back here, is CLG, and let me tell you, this team will be in 6th or 7th by the end of the split. The hardest weekend is now behind them, where they were able to pull a victory out of this, and POB has seemingly cleaned it up. Still 12 for 12 in their first bloods, and that seems to be at least a proponent to leave them ahead in early game, and now they're starting to make better late game decisions and putting them in position to contest those close games, even against the top of the table teams. The next 2 weeks for CLG are looking to be a exclamation point for them to climb up the standings and climb up the rankings, as this team is now starting to come online. And with CLG in 9th, that means Golden Guardians is going to fall back into 10th place. This development roster has just not been in a position where they can really move up or improve where they're at, but you can see marginal improvement from their individual play from week to week. And they're just kind of sitting in a place where right now they're on cruise control and just letting their team kind of do their own thing and let the players play and play it out. I like what the staff is doing to let that happen, to let this team develop naturally, find something that works, and then try to improve for summer split. But for the time being in the spring, they have to fall down to number 10 with the way CLG is improving. But I'd like to see this team shift prio to the top side so Niles doesn't have to go 0-7 every single game. So now let's flash forward into next week. Cloud9 is going to have their toughest matchup against FlyQuest, TL, and TSM. FlyQuest is kind of a wild card here, but TL and TSM are the other two teams that have the best chance of knocking C9 off of the top slot. So definitely going to have to watch Cloud9 very closely in those Saturday-Sunday matchups here. TSM, outside of Cloud9, facing off against Dignitas and 100 Thieves, both teams trying to prove themselves. Certainly going to make things interesting for TSM, as this realistically might be a 1-2 weekend for what I think might be the second best team in the LCS, but this team really needs to step up, play consistently, and play very well to keep themselves in that number 2 spot. Team Liquid facing off against Golden Guardians outside of Cloud9 and CLG. So they get 1 at the top and they get the 2 at the bottom. So realistically, Team Liquid should set the bar very high here. I think they should focus primarily on beating Cloud9, but keep an eye on CLG because that team is starting to come together. And with CLG's 3rd game of the week being against this squad, certainly might be in for a surprise. 100 Thieves face off against EG and TSM, as well as Golden Guardians. Should be able to get at least a couple of victories out of that one. EG, depending on how inconsistently they played, a lot of this question for both of these teams is around mid lane between Damonte and Jizuki. So it's going to be a coin toss as to mid diff and who's going to take charge in that game. Could be a 2-1, could be a 1-2. Wouldn't be surprised either way. Dignitas are very similar, actually, the exact same schedule. Both 100 Thieves and Dignitas face off against TSM, GG, and EG. Dig in the exact same landscape, I think, where they could 1-2, they could 2-1, depending on which team really shows up. So, gonna have to keep an eye out for those teams still fighting it out there on the number 4, number 5 slot. EG facing off against both Dig and 100 Thieves. Their last matchup against Immortals on Saturday is going to be another curious one, where Immortals is trying to find a level of consistency where Evil Geniuses refuses to play consistently. So, could be another curious matchup. there is a world where EG goes 0-3 this weekend. FlyQuest, similar matchup where they're going to take the loss to Cloud9 on Friday, matching up against CLG and Immortals Saturday, Sunday, respectively. I think going to have to watch out for CLG, as I'm going to tell everyone that does play CLG this weekend, but should be able to at least get an emphasis on if they are truly better than Immortals, as we're going to find out which of those two teams is actually going to step up here in that 7th place position, teetering on a place for the playoffs in the mid-season showdown. Immortals, the other squad fighting for that one, also has a game against CLG and EG, so definitely not going to be an easy week here for Immortals, where they're going to have to step up and try to pull out at least a couple of wins if they do want to put themselves in a position to strike for that MSS playoffs. If not, it's going to be a long road here till summer for Immortals. CLG finally has put themselves together. They're on the up and up. This team is looking better and better, and considering who they played last weekend and how good they looked, this is absolutely a weekend where CLG could come out as a surprise, and don't call it a comeback, but there's a very real possibility this team could 3-0, or Team Liquid could beat them in 22 minutes. One or the other, but they play Immortals, FlyQuest, and TL on Sunday. I think that this is a optimistic 2-1. Would love to see a 3-0 from this team. Not biased, by the way. Definitely biased. Wink. I could just wink. Done. And last but not least, Golden Guardians have games against the 3-4-5. They are in the same position CLG was last weekend, playing 3 teams at the top of the table between TL, Dig, and 100 Thieves. Looking for this team to continue to improve, looking for development and what kind of play they can make. As I said, I'd love to see this team play around the top lane a little bit more, but for the time being, just keep getting better from week to week. That's all you can ask. And it's not going to be an easy week to do so, but playing against good competition is certainly going to help. You can hold me to it. You can quote me on it. CLG, they're either the first team out or the last team in for the mid-season showdown. I have faith. It is the faith age, and I will believe that this is the answer. Thanks again for watching, and of course, I'm going to be doing the same thing next week. Not going to be any league and stuff this week that I'll be posting. I'm going to be uploading the VOD from last week's because I just don't have the time to do it here, so not going to happen this week, but next week we'll try to bring it back, see what kind of things we're going to catch up on here after 2 weeks of LCS and the week prior to the actual playoffs. At least the playoffs field being set, so keep an eye out on that. I will be streaming that on Twitch. Also will eventually upload the VOD on YouTube sooner or later. But either way, all my stuff is going to be down below. The Twitch, the Twitter, the Insta, all that stuff I use, and the stuff I don't use, which is just the Instagram, realistically. Yeah. Make sure to subscribe, hit that little ding-a-ling, hit the bell for the updates on when I do post stuff, because I'm trying to make it more consistent. We're getting there. Cheers, and thanks for watching.